Hi again, everyone. Welcome back to It's Not Rocket Science, 5 questions over coffee. I would say coffee, but at the moment I have water in front of me because it's kind of warm today. And therefore, yeah, well done, Tom. And it's really important during hot weather to keep yourself hydrated. I'm sure Tom will get into some of that as he's talking today. So with me today, I have got Tom. Tom Bailey is the founder of Succeed Through Speaking. He spent the first 25 years of his life becoming an expert at avoiding public speaking, and we'll probably sort of understand a little bit about that as we talk to him. That's really prevented him from sort of getting in front of groups of people, but he's now conquered that, and he's really understood how getting your voice heard as an entrepreneur, business owner, consultant is so important, and he now runs courses in order to help people to understand how to get themselves out there and speaking. So, Tom, welcome to It's Not Rocket Science, 5 questions over coffee.
Great intro, Stuart. Thank you so much for having me here today.
No problem at all. So let's start off by sort of talking about what's the biggest challenge that your ideal client faces.
Of course. So I'll begin by describing my ideal clients. So they're typically experts, entrepreneurs, coaches, consultants, and they're normally solopreneurs, so on their own, trying to launch or grow a business. And the typical challenge that they face is that they're the world's best kept secret. And the reason why I say that is because they're typically amazing at what they do. They can bring some amazing value, but they've got fears around actually talking about their business or launching their business or going onto podcasts or speaking. And a lot of my clients is because of anxieties or a fear of public speaking.
Do you know, I read a statistic that that fear of public speaking is one of the greatest fears, and it reminded me that actually when it comes to a funeral, the person giving the eulogy would probably prefer to be the person that's in the box having the eulogy given about them. So exactly. That's one of those great fears, isn't it, that we worry so much about that, and yet it's so little, it's such something so easy to overcome. So what are the common mistakes that people make when they're trying to solve a problem without getting the sort of help that you bring to them?
Of course, and I will just quickly go into my story a little bit because you mentioned the funeral
brilliant.
there.
Oh, I'm hoping we get into this.
That might bring it to light a little bit, because I was my first client, and I had that fear of public speaking, and like you'd said, spent the first 25, 30 years of my life with that fear really holding me back. And it was actually the moment that I decided something needed to be done about this. Was I was asked to speak at my nan's funeral, and I couldn't do it. I just thought 50 people in the room. I've never spoken in front of 2 people. I can't do it. And that was kind of a kick up the bum to say, you need to sort this out. You can't say no to so many things. And that helped with business. Then once I started saying yes, I started doing podcasts. I started speaking on stages eventually after about 5 or 6 years, and it changed everything. So just to your, thank you. So it's helped a lot. And just to your question there, which was around common mistakes that people have when trying to solve this problem, I find that my clients typically hide behind their business. So what I mean by that is they're posting stuff on social media, but it's normally quotes of other people, or they're just putting faceless, inauthentic content out there. They're not putting their true self out there, which really prevents them from building a following, from getting that know, like, and trust factor for their business. And it really does hold them back.
Yeah, you're right. Inauthenticity is such a major problem, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So let's talk about the ways in which you help them. What's that valuable free action or valuable free resource which you bring that you can leave with the audience today?
Yeah, so I'd say free action is to take a look at what we're doing right now. So you're the host of your own podcast, which is helping you build your profile, and I'm here. I've been invited as an expert to speak on your podcast. So again, it's helping me raise my profile. So I guess the action to take is to start getting yourself out there, whether it's, doing a quick podcast episode or speaking on somebody else's show. It's a great way to just start gently getting yourself out there and getting used to speaking about yourself and your business.
And how many valuable free resources you could leave us with?
Yeah, exactly. So one thing that I do is every month I'll deliver my masterclass. So it's the first Thursday of every month at 4 p.m. UK time. And It's the topic of how to become a fearless speaker and get your message to market with confidence and clarity so that you can raise your profile or gain new clients. It's everything we're talking about today. It's how to do it. And the best place to get that is to go to either my website, succeedthroughspeaking.com, or there's a URL on screen now, which is succeedthroughspeaking.com/live demo registration with hyphens in between the live and the demo. And, if you're interested in raising your profile, getting yourself out there, attracting new clients, this will be a great starting point for you.
Yeah, brilliant, Tom. And I must admit, I think you're right. You take that first step, don't you? I mean, so often we worry about taking that first step because we're afraid we'll fall and it will become a horrendous experience. But so often people around you are willing, doing their level best to try and help you. And if you look at it in that way, so often that first step is so much less painful than you expect it to be.
Exactly. And I think it's like any skill. So if you're learning to swim, you wouldn't jump in the deep end or go in the ocean to go for your first swimming lesson. You put your armbands on, you'd get in the shallow end and you just start to get used to the water. And that's what I always recommend for my clients to do is not to think about a keynote speech as your first gig, but how do you get to speak in front of one or two people and just start getting used to it?
Brilliant. Love it. Yes. Let's put those speaking armbands on and start wading about in the shallow end. People.
Exactly. That's it.
A great way of putting it. So what's the concept or book that's been most impactful in your experience?
Yes, I've got it here actually. For me, it's this book by Daniel Priestley. It's called The Key Person of Influence. And he wrote it back in 2014. So, what are we, about 6 or 7 years in now? And he talks about how to fast track your influence in your industry and how to build a reputation. And there's 5 ways that he talks about doing that. And that's pitching, publishing content, creating products, your profile, and partnerships. And one thing that I've realized recently is that 4 of those are all about speaking, presenting, talking to real people. And that's why I think it's just so important to actually get yourself out there and start speaking, presenting, pitching, building partnerships and really getting yourself out there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Communication. And I often say this to my clients when it comes to things like this. They and I don't know what your thinking is on this, Tom, but I often say, look, when you're communicating, you have to remember communicating is what the person that is receiving the message does. It's not about what you think you've done. So if you've not done it in an authentic way, if you've done it in such a way that somehow they haven't understood it, you haven't communicated everything. You've got to get the message across. And sometimes that means changing the way in which you communicate to get them to understand what you're saying. And I think that's one of the messages that's in that book to a large extent. It's about how you get action from somebody rather than just sort of throwing it out there and hoping.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one that's really important for me and my clients as well, is that we need to focus on the message that's landing with the other person or the value that's being given to the other person. Because when we're in our own heads, focusing on what do I look like? What do I sound like? Am I embarrassing myself? Once we're in our own head, it starts to prevent us from actually doing it in the first place. So it's really important to focus on what the message is that lands with the audience.
Brilliant. Love it, Tom. Really, really appreciate it. So here's my, I've asked you my questions. Now here's my get out of jail free card, which is, what's the question I should have asked you? And if you wouldn't mind also not only giving that question, but giving us an answer as well, which sort of puts the pressure right back on you, which is the way I like it.
Yes, perfect. So I think for me, because of the topic, one of the biggest things that comes up with me a lot when I'm working with my clients is, what do I do if I've got a fear of public speaking or limiting beliefs? That's a big one, because I say, go out there and speak, but then they say, well, I can't speak because I've got a fear of speaking. And that's so powerful, this fear of speaking. And it really comes up as what if questions in our head. So what if I make a mistake? What if I forget my lines? What if the technology fails on me? What if I embarrass myself? And it's really powerful and it holds you in your tracks. So a lot of the answers to these questions are typically irrational. Mm-hmm. They're not realistic. You think the ground's going to swallow you up if you embarrass yourself in front of a big audience. But in reality, it's not going to happen. They probably won't even realize you've made a mistake. So what I do is I start asking other questions, which is, what if you do forget your lines? What could you do about it? What else could you do? How could you have prepared more to prevent that from happening? Or what could you do if it does happen? How could you rectify the situation? So for me, it's all about turning fears on their head and thinking about how you can look at them as opportunities rather than as things that could go wrong.
Yeah, and take it from somebody who has stood on a stage and completely forgotten what they were going to say next,
yeah.
and how actually managed to get through that and survive. The consequences are not nearly as dire as you actually imagine them to be in that nightmare of a situation where you're standing there and thinking, I've forgotten what day of the week it is, let alone where I'm currently supposed to go next with this talk. So It's never quite as bad as you think, and you can survive it, can't you, Tom?
And the opportunities outweigh the potential risks. Absolutely.
Great message. Love it. Love it. Listen, thank you so much for being on today, Tom. Really appreciate this. I think it's a brilliant message. If you haven't already gone onto that link and registered to get on and see Tom in action, then I encourage you to do that. And talking about other things that you should go and do, we do these on a regular basis. And if you want to get notified in advance of when we're going to have people like Tom come on and talk about some really important topics, go to https://tca.fyi/subscribe. Get on the newsletter mailing list. That way, every time we do one of these, I send out a mailing, and you'll know that you can come in and see people like Tom live, and if necessary, even ask him questions. Tom, I really appreciate you've been on. We haven't actually had any questions, but that's not the important thing. The important thing is that people now know where to go to get help from people like you to help them with their public speaking. I really appreciate your time today.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me today, Stuart.
No problem at all. Thank you very much, Tom. Speak to you very soon.